Welcome to Lead Pods, the official leadership podcast from USMB for pastors and church leaders, where our goal is to increase our impact together.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 39 of the USMB Lead Pods, and welcome to the month of October. My name is Matt Ersman. I'm grateful to be your host today as we have another really great conversation I'm excited to share with you. So on today's show, we're talking to the old podcasting pro, Ed Boschman. I think this is his third time on our show already. And we're also joined by Chandelle Claassen, and we're talking about the idea of life coaching, or here in the USMB family, we call it lead coaching. If you're anything like me, you've probably heard of life coaching. Maybe some friends or ministry partners of yours have done some kind of life coaching, but I didn't really know a whole lot about what it was exactly and what it meant to sign up for lead coaching. So we dive into that today with two of the head honchos of this ministry as part of the USMB family. So Ed and Chandelle have both been coached themselves, and now they are coaches in our lead coaching ministry. And so they share some insight about how the coaching was helpful to them personally, as well as what the program looks like if you sign up, and some ways that it might benefit you personally or professionally to go through this lead coaching opportunity. So I learned a lot. I think you will too. And so we'll take a quick break and then get right to our conversation with Ed Boschman and Chandelle Claassen.
Imagine having a financial plan for your important end-of-life decisions. Will planning outlines who will care for your family and how your assets will be distributed to provide for those you love. Nearly 60% of adults do not have a will, and many do not know where to start. The process can be confusing and overwhelming. At MB Foundation, our advisors are prepared to assist you with navigating the process. Our Biblical Estate Design Service will help you clarify your goals, develop a unique plan, and efficiently implement your plan. You will be encouraged to incorporate your faith into the process, making it more than a legal transaction. Will planning gives you peace of mind, is a gift to your family, and ensures your values guide your legacy. With offices in Hillsborough, Kansas, and Fresno, California, we are ready to serve you. In-person and virtual appointments are available. Learn more at www.mbfoundation.com/willplanning or call us today at 1-800-551-1547. MB Foundation is pleased to partner with USMB to bring you this episode of Lead Pods.
All right, my friends. Well, today I'm excited to be joined by two guests that I'm guessing some of you listening will know. We're joined by Ed Boschman. Ed and I were just chatting. I think he wins the award for the most frequent guest on the Lead Pods. This guy just keeps coming back. So, Ed, we're glad to have you. Thanks for joining us again today.
My joy.
And we've also got Chandelle Claassen with us today. And Chandelle is the spiritual director at Blue Stem Space. She's also got a lot of experience with life coaching, with professional life coaching and spiritual direction. So Chandelle, really grateful to have you with us as well. So today our topic is life coaching through the LEAD initiative, the USMB LEAD coaching. And we're going to just dive into what that is, who it might be helpful for. And these two have a lot of experience answering those questions. So Ed, maybe I'll start with you. I have never been a part of life coaching. I don't know a whole lot about it. I was reading up on it on the USMB website, and it seems like people start by saying all the things that it isn't. It's not counseling. It's not necessarily consulting or mentoring. So if it's not those things, what is life coaching?
I think it's driven largely by a trusting, confident relationship. It offers an incredible accountability. And often those two things, I think, in partnership sort of define the value. I always say to the guys that I partner with, I want you to know that I'm going to be your friend. I'm going to be your ally. I want to be in the best possible way. I would love to live a life that you could respect and honor. And so I hope that, through the experiences that I've enjoyed over the years, I would be able to offer some excellent level of discernment for you as we move through the portions of this 1-year partnership. It starts with a life plan. So it's kind of like a 360 review A personal retreat is in the mix, and there's some inventories that we do to get it started. From there, we build it out into family and ministry and work, and we can talk more about that. But yeah, I think it has to do with partnership. It has to do with, and I should not leave out the fact that the way we approach this is centered on the fact that the Holy Spirit lives in us, and that we can count on Him to guide us through this process as we do the work.
Yeah, I echo that absolutely, and I think it's for everybody. What a wonderful gift of a safe place in each conversation, and then a safe relationship. I think at the foundation, it's a lot of identity work. And so bouncing off of what Ed said with the Holy Spirit, everything about us, like the simple question, who am I? I probably shouldn't lead with a name or a role. Lead that I was chosen by God to live and for relationship. And so, yeah, when you preface everything, even in a coaching relationship, and what comes out and comes forth from that, we get to really live in confidence and dream big and co-create with God. And that can come out of a coaching relationship, that deepening awareness of who we are and really what we're on task to do for His kingdom, and with having fun along the way, tapping into the things that we value and that we're passionate about.
Yeah, I like that.
The coachees usually have fun once they get over the fact that accountability is going to blow them away. I think, the whole idea that, we decide on things that they want to aspire to, or things to do, or action plans. And then lo and behold, there's an appointment coming, and now it's going to be like, okay, how did it go? Did you get it? So once they get through that, it flows pretty well.
I want to get into kind of the nitty-gritty details of what you were just talking about, Ed. But Chandelle, real quick, I want to ask you too. I know that spiritual direction is a big part of specifically your practice that you incorporate. Can you explain what does it mean to be a spiritual director, and how does that play in the coaching conversations?
Again, maybe the biggest difference is maybe in a spiritual direction session, we are not as action or goal oriented. We don't come out of every hour with a task that has been set apart and dreamed about, to try to make that movement. It's about a lot of awareness, just a deepening awareness, looking for the fingerprints of God in our lives, seeing where He's active, not just thinking about God in heaven and, however many years we have left to live after we die, but God in the here and now. And so all of that can be found in coaching also. We are just not as moving forward, maybe. A lot of times we're actually learning how to slow down. And as I say that, that's a piece of coaching too. Less is more often on our margins, our boundaries.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just start from the very beginning. So I think you said, Chandelle, that life coaching really could be for anybody. Let's talk about that a little bit. Who is this for? Is it really literally everyone, or who and how and why is this beneficial in our, mostly it's professional and personal lives, right? Who can benefit the most from this kind of relationship?
When we first envisioned initiating this ministry, we were doing that in response to the fact that we were finding out through district ministers and others that there were any number of local church staff who were really struggling, with just a sense of personal wholeness and satisfaction and effectiveness. And also specifically as it relates to the ministry, with ministry direction and vision and planning, and then also every now and again we'd hear that just the whole idea of getting things done was a challenge for church staff, and so we discovered this plan, which initially was connected to Building Champions, and then became its own independent Ministry Coaching International organization, and then eventually moved back into Building Champions again. We discovered that that's what they address in their format for these partnerships. And so we aimed it then at church staff at the beginning, but knowing full well that Building Champions works with business people, lay people, male, female, anybody, as Chandelle just said, can benefit from this kind of a partnership. And so we actually then kind of negotiated two options. So we have one option, which is the personal review, the life plan piece, And then we add that to Getting Things Done, which is based in a book by David Allen under that same title, where people can organize their lives and become more efficient and effective. And so that's one option. And then the other half of it is Ministry Vision and Ministry Plan, which is more for somebody that actually is in the driver's seat in a particular ministry. It helps them to create, organizational health and clarity, and take care of vision by making plans to get it done. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I've had the joy. I don't know about Chandelle's history, but I've had the joy of coaching business guys and pastoral types, and we always say anybody in the church that is interested could easily partner with us on this thing.
Mm-hmm. Ed just articulated so beautifully, and really highlighting that there are these different sections to it, and where maybe not everybody thinks that they are in the driver's seat of a particular ministry that they need to really dive into casting a vision for an organization. Mm-hmm. I would like to see more team members or even spouses of people who have gone through coaches at least do the life plan and the priority management. I just think we would be setting ourselves up for such strong relationships, because it'd be one person when you would have a family, let's say, where part of it has really gone through this season of growth and identity, but not the spouse, like kind of firing on two different maybe communication levels. And just, again, too, with learning how to organize your calendar and prioritize. So when I think about how it could be for more people, it's on those levels too. There's just some simple structure in our lives that we could live with a lot better freedom and that bigger yes to who we are and what we're involved in.
Those four, we call it the core four. It's kind of how it's referred to. And so the core four is 4 pieces and 4 chapters. So the first one is your life plan. So that's the personal review. Mm-hmm. And that takes you through, a whole series of accounts in your life where you're reviewing your own personal health. You're getting another look at how God has wired you and how you are built and what you have learned along the way so far. You're taking a look at your marriage and your family. You're taking a look at your diversions, your hobbies, your friendships, your stewardship. It's a pretty well-rounded review. So that's part one. And then in the original plan, the priority management that Chandelle just mentioned is the 4th part. But we have found often that pulling that into position 2 is really a pretty good place for that to be, because it helps then to set up some systems and some capacity for running through what were originally parts 2 and 3, which is the ministry vision and the ministry plan. Okay. And so, that's the strategic part, right? And often that is something where the lead, whoever's in lead position there, is going to call their allies in, their partners, their boards, their, and it becomes a process that they can work through together. But just so you understand, that those are the 4 pieces that are involved in the process.
We'll dive deeper into that here in just a second too. But I want to again back up just a little bit. So if someone, because Ed, you're the USMB lead head coach, right? You kind of lead this initiative. I know Chandelle is a coach, and I think there are others too, right? Are there several USMB coaches?
Yes, we have a handful. We had a few more than that originally, but for various reasons, some of them have moved out of positions of ministry, and so. But we have, I think, 5 options right now. Yes.
Okay, cool. So then, I guess if I were hearing this for the first time, one of my first questions would be, who is this coach going to be? How do they know enough to help me lead my life? So what kind of training, what kind of resources have you and others gone through so that they can be in a position to be helpful? Does that make sense? I trust both of you 100%, but if I was coming in blindly, that'd be one of my first questions is, who are these strangers and how are they going to help me?
All of our certified coaches, USMB, have themselves experienced coaching. So they have been through the actual process that we now have authorized them to go through. In addition to that, they have been certified through a specific process, which now I'm responsible for. But before I was, we had guys from Building Champions team certifying us. And so my certification came through them. So all of our coaches have theological education at graduate degree level, and some of us at doctoral level as well. We've got various histories in terms of our undergrad. For me, it was, English and psych. So if I can speak clearly, it's credit to those 4 years. If I can help somebody and listen to their inner being, that's a credit to a little bit of a psych minor. But yeah, and so the training, the Building Champions is a gold standard in coaching. And so if you check out coaching online, you will bump into Building Champions. These are the guys that coach Chick-fil-A, and other big time business people. And so it's a proven system. So we've got, I think we've got some fairly good sort of authentication bloodlines going. And the other coaches are the likes of district ministers, people who have a long history in ministry, a lot of experiences. So we try to utilize those people in those kinds of positions as well.
Yeah, like I said, you got me convinced. All right. So one of the things on the USMB website that I was reading, which I think when we talk about how this can be for everyone, one of the lines was, what would it feel like to live at your full potential? And there's a lot of those kinds of questions and the kind of promotional stuff for lead coaching. And so I guess like that sounds appealing to me. I think most of us have goals that we want to reach that are, if we're left on our own, we're having trouble making progress for whatever reason. So let's say you're in a coaching session and like, how do you start? If someone says, I feel like I'm not living at my full potential, I have this goal that I just can't reach, walk us through like, how do you actually start with that?
I think how I framework a conversation, the beginning session really would just be creating that space where awareness comes out of, so it's questions, just really learning where that person's at, why they feel like they're that, just the facts about their life, but also maybe just some of the narratives that they have. You just form this deepening awareness, and then move into questions that are focused a little bit more on vision. We all have dreams. We all have visions. Now, we don't all feel like we can accomplish those. A lot of times we might meet with somebody that has an idea of what they want to do, but for some reason, their narrative, their awareness thinks that they're incapable of that. And so you can start to form this beautiful foundation of just digging deeper with these questions and letting people discover things that they've never known. I think that's a piece, discovering more about themselves. And good question asking can do just that.
Yeah, well said, Chandelle. You pointed out the sort of the initial conversation as a critical piece, and that's exactly right. Before somebody says, "Okay, let's do this," typically we're going to have a chat, right? And if we get to do it in person, sometimes we're geographically close enough. We sit down together and we say, "All right, let's have lunch and let's talk about this," right? And or if it's on phone or Zoom or whatever, ask people about their passion and ask them about their pain. And so it's like, if you've got time to listen, usually you're going to get a lot of information. Like, what are you passionate about? And, you can get people talking about that. And if they don't have much passion, then you realize, oh boy, so we've got to address that. Right. And then, what are you hurting about? What's your pain level? Like, are there things that you need to let go of? Right. And so it's not like a psychological trip, but it's just the being stuck. Sometimes we use that terminology. Are you stuck at some point in your life and you just can't get through? And so we talk about coaching through the gap. And it's interesting because when I was trained, my trainer said to me, you didn't promise enough when I was taking you through the thing. You need to promise people that they can get off the dime, that they can make progress, that we can help them to be more fulfilled and more effective and more, a greater kingdom value. And that's simply called coaching through the gap. And Chandelle kind of initiated that, where do you want to get to? Like, what can you envision? If you can envision something, there's a fair chance that we can get headed off in that direction and probably get there. So let's give it a run, right? So I think those kinds of questions and those kinds of conversations can set you up. And then the other thing that happens in these two inventories is that the PDP and the EQI also point out, behavioral realities and emotional maturity realities that we can kind of throw in the mix and say, all right, because those inventories provide great outlines for follow-up as well. Which can be, self-regulated, or we can jump in as the coach and say, where do you want to go with that?
One thing you mentioned earlier, Ed, I think you said this, that it's a 360 thing where you're helping people understand their goals, of course, but also their strengths and their weaknesses. You mentioned accountability. I think we all like talking about ourselves, right? And it's fun to think about goals and dreams and how to tackle this big project, but accountability is part of it too, right? So how does that play in, and how do you gently say, here's your dream, okay, here's what that means, like here's what you're going to have to do? Can you just talk about that aspect of it a little bit?
Yeah, we sure can, can't we, Chandelle?
That's right.
It's an interesting thing. When we do the agreement actually says, this is our agreement, but if you want to bow out, or if you can't deal with it or whatever, here are the terms of reference for finishing, like for calling it quits, right? And I always thought, that's never going to happen. I am not going to let somebody do that. Well, in the last, I think 10 years now or whatever, I've had one person, we agreed together after, I think, 3 or 4 sessions, essentially the coachee said, I am just not willing to do the work. I just don't want to fit it into my life. I just can't. And so hopefully, as a coach, we would get the coachee to say those things rather than us saying, dude, you're not making the team here. You're done. Yeah. So, but I think to get to that place, we'll ask some questions like, you're really struggling with your plans to make progress, right? What's going on? And so I think with enough of those kinds of questions, that's the fearsome part of the accountability. You're right. You're right. What are you thinking about that, Chandelle?
I do think we need to address the obstacles ahead of time, even the obstacles within a wonderful vision and our goal casting. And so some of that accountability comes through that. It's the question saying, okay, let's identify some of these either external or internal obstacles that we are going to face. We know that year is not going to go as planned for a multitude of reasons. Yeah, really setting a space where we look at some of that up front too. And that's when we can kick in and we can pull in more support systems in as somebody is reaching for their goal. Because we make decisions, we cast vision in times of highs, like we have consolations. We're like, yeah, let's do it. And the reality is that somewhere along the line, it is going to get tough.
Yeah.
It'll be seasons of desolation and we're going to want to give up.
Mm-hmm.
We know that that's not an option. When we hit those lulls, we have tools for accountability in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
One of the things that makes the accountability sort of digestible for the coachee is that the coachee is the person who actually decides what the action plan is going to be. So the Excel program that we use, where we exchange information, has an opportunity for us to put action plans in there, typically 3 or 4 or 2, whatever, how big they are. And so the first few sessions, we as the coach might say, all right, how about your action plan looks like this? Or how about your action plan looks like this? But once the coachee understands, oh, this is how this works, then as we are working through the subject matter and the material, the coach, steps back and says, all right, what would you like to accomplish this next couple of weeks before we talk again? And so then, we may guide them or spur them, but they make the call. And then they put into their map, that Excel program, here, action plan number 1 is going to be this, action plan number 2 is going to be this. And each of those action plans has the capacity to have a due date on them in the same program. So that, and then the accountability is a little more natural. It's self-imposed to some degree, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if we have a goal, we haven't accomplished it yet, there's a reason why, right? And it's usually because there's something hard in the way that maybe we can't see, or maybe we can see and we're avoiding. I mean, that's why things don't get done sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
and that happens too at the beginning of a call. I'm sure you've had this, Chandelle, say, man, I just didn't get this done. And they don't get hammered for that. They just get, oh, wow, what happened? And all right, let's just move it down to the next coaching session. And you think, and then again, ask, do you want to do it? And it's up to them, right? So the more we can say, I had one particular coachee that would say to me 3 or 4 or 5 times in every call, what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? And after a while, I'm like, okay, I'm never going to answer that question ever again with this coachee. It's like, what are your options? What do you think you should do? So you keep trying to push it back, which takes us out of the sort of the mentor, role that we don't want to get into too much, right?
Okay. Another thing I want to get some time to talk about is I know that this is professional and personal, right? I think usually when we think of goal setting, at least for me, the first thing that comes to mind is, what career goals do I have? What job do I want? What project do I want to accomplish? But my understanding is that it's also like family and it's, personal development outside of work. And so I want to hear about that a little bit more. My understanding is that, your family aspects, if you have kids or your spouse, that's a ginormous part of your life that sometimes you need some help with. I think we all could use some help with. So can you just talk about how does the personal and professional kind of come together in these coaching relationships?
Hopefully there would be consistency, that whatever we're doing, we're the same minute in, minute out of our days. And so then that just naturally becomes that the way we work with our coworkers is the same way we talk maybe with our family. To sit, to be present to them, truly present, asking questions about their day, listening. I've found that sometimes I have success in this with the family, and other times I have completely not hit the nail with my family. But when I'm being intentional, I am trying to ask those questions that they can discover more about themselves. I think that with my teenage sons, trying to just ask questions that like Ed, referred to with the clients, they have the say in what they want to work on. So if I can even ask questions that help that come up in my sons, that they know that they have responsibility in the driver's seat of their lives and what they can work towards and stuff. I'd add too, I think a big part of this is being able to work with our emotions and really help not only myself, but others in my family name our emotions in the moment. That our churches and maybe our families of origins haven't done the best job with that. Like we have the kind of good emotions and then the bad emotions, and coping or not coping. Usually those get stacked in different places, but to really help uncover what we feel and where it takes us. Coaching is a beautiful way to have discussions about things.
Yeah.
One of the things that we try to do as coaches is refer to resources. And so if somebody, let's say in particular, is saying, man, this having kids thing is just making me crazy, we might say, well,
hypothetically speaking,
is that why your hair is standing straight up on one end there, Matt?
Yes.
We might say, well, have you read anything about it? Have you read How to Really Love Your Child? A classic old book that just takes you through some really good concepts about how to do that. But specifically for the coaching thing, we haven't mentioned yet that we set this thing up after a personal retreat that the coachee takes. And so they go away for a day or two, hopefully 2 days overnight, all by themselves. They take only just a few things that we sort of suggest they take, but they take the growth guide. And chapter 1 of the core 4 is this personal life review, the life plan. And so within that, 24-hour period, they're going to spend maybe a couple of hours looking at the material about their family. And so that will take them into some scripture. They'll review it. That will ask them some probing questions about how happy they are with their relationships at home, with their wife, with their kids, potential suggestions for resources, questions that they would like to address in the future, and also takes them to the place where they're going to actually spell out some personal goals, action plans for those particular areas of their lives. And so whether that's in handling their finances, or whether it's in their spousal relationship, or whether it's in their leisure time or their habits, they're going to be thinking all of this through on that retreat. And then when we do the debrief on the retreat, they're going to spill this stuff, right? And we're going to say, all right, where do you want to start, right? Or how can we help? And so it's pretty effective at helping to find out where the pain is, and how to unload it.
Okay, time's going really fast, so I'm trying to at least get 2 more questions in here. So one thing, I was on the USMB website and there's a video, I forgot, I think I filmed it years ago, I just forgot about it. But my pastor, Brent Workington, has been, I think you've coached him, Ed.
Correct.
And one thing that he said in the little video that we did was that he was hesitant to sign up. He didn't think he needed it. He kind of needed a little bit of pushing. He was like, I'm sure it's great, but not for me. Like he talks about, like that was him talking in the video.
Right.
So I'm guessing a lot of people kind of feel that way. Like, oh, it sounds cool. It sounds great, but I don't know if I need it. What would you say to someone who's kind of thinking that right now?
That's what I thought. I've had, decades of experience and, led teams and, had some success. And so what do I need this for? And let me tell you something, that was pride speaking in part. It was fear speaking in part. I don't have time speaking in part. It's natural to be somewhat fearful of something new. And there's some trust that's necessary there. I've got one individual right now who is deferring periodically as I check in, because they've expressed interest and openness and yes, I want to do this, but now it's next month and it's going to be after this and then after that. My response to that is, okay, yeah, you're busy and you're distracted and you've got other priorities, and we can help you. We can help you work with those realities, because those realities are not going to change. Mm-hmm. So, just dive in. For some people, it's financial. We try to remove that barrier entirely. We say, if it's money, let's just figure it out. We'll figure it out somehow, right?
What other excuses do you hear, Chandelle, or how do you deal with those? If people say that to you, how do you help them understand how it's beneficial? Or maybe is there a season where it's not beneficial? What else would you chime in there, Chandelle?
There are times. I mean, how long do you work with somebody that keeps deferring before you go, maybe they're not in a coachable season? But I think where my thoughts took me as I was listening was just thinking about people having this thing that they're just going to be told all these things that they're not doing right and have to change. And don't enter that way. It really is a partnership, and it's all about the coachee. And so, that steers where we go with it. But I wonder if that's part of the beginning of where people have a hesitation. My life's fine. I don't see a problem. Mm-hmm. Really, there are just these gifts that can come out of it to make us move the needle from fine to full, or, like the best, yes, the best life. And so it's like, I can eat my cake, but do I want to have icing on my cake also? Mm-hmm. And so that also, I think fear, I love talking about fear. And God enters into my greatest callings in fear. And so I think about fear and excitement now being traveling companions. And so I've learned to cue in when I get fearful of something, because I usually go, oh, I think God's going to be up to something here. And I think everybody thinks we get to this other side where we're never supposed to feel fear. But instead it's like, okay, how can we harness that? And how do we move forward despite of it? And obviously, as children of God, and there's lots of biblical verses on that and a lot of movement, but we have to be able to hunker in and learn to deal with it too. So,
okay, well, that might lead me really well. One of the last things I want to hear from both of you, it's kind of a two-part question, because you said you've both been coached yourselves before, right? So, and when you are being coached, what did you feel like was most helpful to you? And then in turn, as you have been coaching others, what else have you learned, or maybe what kind of growth have you seen in the people that you're coaching? So just kind of What have you learned and what have you seen in others as you've gone through this process?
Well, I spent a wonderful year with Ed, and it was just a time of going deeper. It was a beautiful season. And so, yeah, it's hard because, yeah, I went and I looked at my certificate and I thought, when was that? So we finished up in the fall of 15. So it was a while ago now. But I loved the relational aspect. And for me, I think really we have a lot of pieces of life, but even our friends and our family, sometimes there's always this give and take. What I loved about the coaching relationship is it really was an hour for me to think, to process, to get up and out, to dream, and have that accountability with it. One of the things that stand out to me a lot in that moment is I was going to give a workshop at our senior high camp, and I did lots of different workshops during that time with Ed, but this time he had given me the practical advice of going into a room and just like visualizing even beforehand. That sticks with me to this day when I go into places. And I remember this particular room, it had the tiered seating. And so just to be able to spend some time in that space, kind of honoring it as a holy place, goes with me today. And that was a very distinct thing that came out of the coaching time with Ed. It is no two coaching relationships or even direction sessions with somebody are the same. You really do just meet people where they're at and get to have companionship and move. So I don't even know how to think of some of the biggest things because there's lots. And sometimes it's in pain, like Ed mentioned earlier, and sometimes it's in passion. It's both. And so the beauty of knowing that you have somebody there in both of those spectrums is beautiful.
The first time that my first coach, I've been coached 2 seasons. The first time that my first coach caught me up short was a good moment, because by that time in my life, I thought, you know what, I got this. I'm going to stay on top of this. I'm going to be ahead of this coach. I'm going to get it done. I am going to be his 5-star pupil. And then one day he said something about, that's not very precise. You need to work that over some more. I'm like, my first response was, don't tell me what to do, right? But then I thought, you know what? He is coaching me to be better. And I learned to like that. And I got better in measurable ways. So I will never forget the fact that the investment in coaching made me better personally, made me better at home, made me better in ministry. And it just ramped up my impact capacity. And who wouldn't want that? I just keep thinking, yeah, that's a good thing. I was a better executive director for USMB because I was coached. So that was helpful. I love it when a coachee comes on, when we're in a call and the coachee says something like, what I thought of this week? And then they go into an insight that they have gained, which will be either bring personal benefit or ministry benefit or team benefit. And they came up with it. The power of insight that the coachee comes up with is multiple times bigger than anything I would try to feed into their lives. And so if there's a way that we as coaches can set people up for insight, I just think that is so good. And when that happens, my tank gets full again. And I think this is well worthwhile. So I've seen that happen. I don't think that you could, if you went through the list of, I don't know how many it is exactly, if you went through the list of 20 people, let's say, that have been coached over the last number of years, and if you said to them, was it a waste of time? I don't think anybody is going to say, yeah, it probably didn't make much difference. I'm convinced that there was measurable help and encouragement, and that, that personal influence and even value in the kingdom was tangible.
I agree.
It sounds like a great thing. I hope people listening today will consider it, because I think we can all benefit from someone who can speak into our lives like that. I think it's great. So if people do want to learn more, I think the website is usmb.org/lead-coaching. And then Ed, are you kind of the one who kind of starts the conversation and gets them set up with a different coach? Is that how it works?
It's not mandatory that it be that way, but I'd certainly
Okay.
be willing to do that. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Right. So I'll look for your call, Matt.
That's right.
Man, I'm being recorded. I'm on the spot here.
That's a wonderful accountability measure.
Yeah, true. Well, thanks to both of you, both for your time today, but also for just leading this great program. I think it sounds like a really cool thing. So thanks to both of you for all that you're doing, and we'll hope that a bunch of people sign up. Thanks for your time today, both of you. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
USMB is delighted to be a partner in the Bless Your Pastor movement to help churches show and share God's love with their pastors, who faithfully serve and love the people in their congregations. The Bless Your Pastor initiative, created by the National Association of Evangelicals, is an opportunity for your church to take seriously the call to care for your pastor. Visit usmb.org to access creative ways to bless your pastoral staff during Pastor Appreciation Month in October or this Christmas season.
Okay, well, I don't know how fair it was for them to put me on the spot like that right there at the end of the conversation and just call me out, but Ed and Chandelle, I guess I'll take it. And I have to confess, I haven't signed up yet, but I am intrigued. I think it's a really cool program, and I think we would all benefit from that kind of leadership and that kind of relationship in our lives. And so, again, I want to thank both Ed and Chandelle for sharing with us about this really great ministry. And I do encourage you, if this is something that sounds interesting to you, that you think might be helpful for your ministry, I encourage you to check out the website, usmb.org/lead-coaching. And I think you'll find everything that you need there if you're interested in learning more or signing up. All right, and with that, I think we'll wrap up today's episode. So many thanks again to you for joining us today. I hope you have a great week, a great weekend, and we'll see you right here next time for another episode of the USMB Lead Pods.
Thanks for listening to Lead Pods. Make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing to our show wherever you're listening today. Learn more by visiting usmb.org, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll see you next time as we learn more practical tools to increase our impact together.